Welcome, everyone. We will begin the webinar on defect removal. The training will earn you 1 ICAR credit for non-structural. I'm Melissa Joles with RDA Impact. Dennis Beardsley, North American Training Manager, and Kevin Creegan, National Accounts for Saint-Gobain, are your presenters today. The presentation will take approximately 45 minutes, and at the end of the presentation, we'll send you a test which you will need to complete and email back to Dennis with your ICAR information. We will include instructions. We are recording the presentation and will post it on our YouTube channel. If you have questions during the webinar, you can type them in the bottom at the chat box at the right of the screen, and they will be answered during the presentation. Now I'll turn it over to Kevin.
All right. Thank you, Melissa. Melissa cut out a little bit when she was describing the course. Today we're going to be working on defect removal and finishing. As Melissa mentioned, you will receive 1 credit for non-structural applications under the PDP program with ICAR for completing the test after the curriculum and following the protocol for submitting your request for credits. I'm Kevin Creegan. I'm working out of my home office today. I have been over the past 3 to 4 months. Dennis Beardsley is in our North American Training Center in Watervliet / Troy, New York. And today we're going to be talking to you a little bit about defect removal, as I've already mentioned. This is the second of 2 ICAR credit virtual classes that we've conducted through RDA. There will be another module in the month of August that will deal with the aerosol and the aerosol applications, all the neat things that you can spray, and from corrosion protection to coatings. So you won't want to miss that one either. Okay. A few words about the RSG group. For those of you who are not aware, the Refinish Solution group includes best of class products in a number of categories. Of course, Norton, Carborundum, Frecla is a new offering. SolarGuard, American Tape, DeFilbus, Fuser Repair Adhesives, as well as Hutchins Tool. Hutchins just joined the RSG family of brands last November, and Frecla joined approximately at that same time. Today's class is defect removal and finishing. It is Saint-Gobain classwork 0003. It will be necessary to cover a little bit of paperwork here. Full disclosure, it is the policy of Saint-Gobain Abrasives to fully disclose to all participants in the course that Saint-Gobain Abrasives is the provider of the curriculum used in this course. Refinish Solutions Group is an initiative of Saint-Gobain Abrasives, and we sell the products that are taught and used in this course. Antitrust, we're not all gathered in one spot, but if we were, there would be no discussion on pricing, labor times, who does good work or bad work, et cetera, and in general, no discussion on how a body shop or collision repair company conducts its business. You may or may not know that Saint-Gobain is an ICAR sustaining partner. The ICAR Sustaining Partner program is the latest, evolution for ICAR. For a number of years, there was a vendor or a industry organization called the Industry Training Alliance, and it was it included many best of class product manufacturers in the industry, and they were all part of the ICAR Training Alliance. The latest version of this of ICAR's cooperation with the collision repair industry and training is called the ICAR Sustaining Partner Partnership. As a sustaining partner, we support ICAR's vision and mission of delivering the latest repair knowledge and training to every collision repair technician out there. We believe in doing the right thing for the industry and help deliver complete, safe, quality repairs to the ultimate benefit of our friends, families, neighbors, and others, other users of collision repair services. Saint-Gobain has been part of the Sustaining Partner Program with ICAR for about 6 to 8 months now. Actually, a little bit longer than that, but we're really glad to be here. As part of the Sustaining Partner Program, or part of the program, we help lower training costs overall and encourage shops to continue or increase training to stay current with today's complex vehicles. Excuse me. We also contribute to reducing fees. As a partner, we provide financial support, allow more schools to run programs, develop better trained entry-level technicians as a result. And finally, as a partner, we provide resources to help ICAR develop and deliver the training and services needed for safe repairs. A very important part of the Sustaining Partnership Program is that there are no fees levied to the shop or to the individual technician for attending our Sustaining Partner training. That's a major shift in the industry, major paradigm shift, if you will. It's always been a consideration of a shop, wondering where those training dollars were going to come from, and how, in addition to sometimes taking the shop down out of production for a half a day or a day, exactly how you're going to maintain their certifications and how they're going to provide for training. Well, ICAR is in partnering with manufacturers like us has taken those concerns away, and it's definitely a good change for the better in the industry. We're dedicated to repairing vehicles right. That's the long and short of it. Train shops are better partners overall. ICAR studies show that gold class shops outperform non-gold class shops in terms of cost to repair metrics and other KPIs. Gold class shops also have the knowledge and skills that contribute to complete, safe, and quality repairs. Training also can help reduce liability and expenses. Supporting the Sustaining Partner Program allows ICAR to supply the information and the training the industry needs to perform complete, safe, quality repairs. This puts consumers back on the road safely, quicker, better, faster, and reduces potential liability faced by automakers, insurers, and repairers. Everyone knows about the liability issues in our industry. In Texas, about 2 or 3 years ago, there was a major watershed verdict rendered for repairs that were not made according to OEM recommendations, and none of us wants to be in a position of having that happen to one of our shops, let alone one of our family members. So we're dedicated to repairing vehicles right. The information and education that ICAR provides emphasize the importance of using quality parts and services, as well as adherence to OEM repair procedures. These steps will result in repairs being completed the first time, every time. Quality repairs make happy customers, and improve CSI and other metrics associated with customer satisfaction. ICAR trained shops produce more satisfied customers, and industry metrics indicate that satisfied customers are more likely to remain loyal to brands. There will be a test at the end of this course. It's about a 10-question test. If you're paying attention during the presentation, you're going to pass with flying colors. Passing this test will allow a student to receive a certification affirming completion of the course, and therefore they will be allowed to apply for ICAR credit. There will be 1 hour of ICAR credit provided for completing this segment. So let's get right into things, but no presentation, no training would be complete without a reminder about safety. Probably 6 months ago, the only people that knew what the acronym PPE stands for might have been people working in our business, maybe in the healthcare business, but now it's a household term. I'd be remiss if I didn't emphasize here the very important aspects of wearing proper PPE, proper safety equipment. Also want to eliminate sparks and flames. Common sense, but you might be surprised in some shops what goes on behind closed doors. You want to eliminate skin contact wherever possible when you're using adhesives or sealants or pretty much anything in the shop. They may cause skin irritation. Wear gloves. Wear a good glove, disposable glove to protect your hands, and wear those gloves even though you may not ever have had a problem in the past, because sensitivities can develop over time. Eye contact, of course, immediately you want to flush your eyes with water. Most shops have an eye wash station very nearby, and if you happen to get any material in your eyes, flush them immediately with water, and let's not forget those safety glasses, which can eliminate the whole use of having to use that eye wash station. And if you do get something in your eye, contact your physician for further follow-up care afterwards. Objectives of our course today: defect identification. We're going to talk a little bit about defect identification. We'll talk about different types of defects. We'll talk about then removing those defects or denibbing. We're going to dig into buffing, and finally spend a little bit of time on vehicle cleanup and how important that is to deliver a fully detailed, nice cleaned up vehicle, and dare I say now, sanitized vehicle to the customer after the repair. Before we get into defect removal and defects in general, a few words about paint defects. Paint defects are typically caused by contaminants, airborne contaminants in the shop, throughout the shop. A shop environment can be kind of a dusty environment. Grinding, cutting, welding, and in particular sanding can all create dust in a shop environment. Dust extraction sanding, you may or may not know this, can help reduce airborne shop particulates by up to 75%. So work smarter, start clean and stay clean, and remember, a clean paint job starts with a clean shop, and a clean shop starts with the Norton vac rack. You can contact your local distributor for more information, but the Norton vac rack is a great tool to help you start and stay clean. So let's talk a little bit about defect identification. Dennis, I'm going to turn things over to you, sir.
Excellent. So runs, right? We have different types of contaminants. Excuse me, sorry about that. A little dry here. You can get out a run as long as you go at it correctly. Now, there's several different methods, but something to keep, sometimes a run is just too far gone. You're going to have solvent pop on it. Even if you get it flat, you're going to have to re-sand it and recoat and paint it. But in a lot of cases, you can get it out. The key Sharper the paper or coarser the paper, flatter the job. So in that slide right there, where you cut through on that run is not on the high spot, right, Kevin? It's actually in the area around it, right, where it's not as high, and that's where you get yourself in trouble. But if you come in, and each run can be different, but you come in with the correct grit and go at it a little aggressively, cut the high spot out, then using the grit rules. So for instance, let's say you started on that run and that slide at 800 grit, or even 600. Then move to 800, because it's every 200 grit increments, then to 1,000, then from 1,000 to 15, 15 to 2,000, then you can polish it. Now, or you go at the razor blade avenue. You can go at it with, there's some different tools out there to go at it. Most common is with abrasive, and then you move up with our abrasives to smooth it out. But again, coarser the paper, flatter the job. When we start with working with body filler, right? When we put it on that first coat, we want to cut it. We start with 320 or 80, right? We start with 80 because it's coarser, and then we move up from there, because the goal is to get it as flat and smooth as possible. The same with an unsightly flow indicator, which is in a run, right? So we just want to go at it and have the coarsest paper without hurting the film thickness. Now let's get into that. I brought a little toy with me today, Kevin, a little film thickness gauge, and we're going to measure before we sand, and then after we've sanded and polished, and measure where our film thickness is, because depending on the manufacturer of the coating, they're looking between 2 and 2.5 mils worth of clear after it's been sanded and polished. So we've got to make sure that we go at that defect aggressively, get it smooth, but we don't over sand or over process, right? So that's another key point to be aware of. All right.
And for purposes of this presentation, we have some very obvious slides here. If you saw a painter that was delivering the kind of results that are evident here in this slide of a drip, he may or they may not be working altogether that much longer. So this is going to be, this is really an obvious situation, and some of the other ones are not quite as apparent. Let's go to the next slide then. Dennis, have you got this?
I do now. So
yeah,
we have runs, we have dirt, and we have orange peel. All right, so it's the different types of defects that we have. We want to point each one out. Now, sometimes, our job is to match that car in the pre-accident condition, right? So if it does have texture, we have to put that back in, right? That's our job. If the car didn't come in with dirt, we have to make sure it leaves without dirt, right? So identify it, sand it out, polish, and then move on. All right, the same with the run. Run is something that we put in there by accident. We want to avoid it, but it does happen, and try to get out of it. Again, what I talked about before, coarser the paper, flatter the area, and then move on. I know it takes a second. There it is. So grabbing the right grit. So that right grit is going to be key. Most people are going to start with 1,500 grit. That's a good starting point. If I need to go coarser with a 1,200 or 1,000, then I do that, and then move to 1,500, and then finishing it with 2,000 grit. All right. The reason we want to do that is to make the polishing process as easy as possible. All right. Go ahead. Next one.
Okay, here's your live demo, Dennis.
Awesome. Let's do it. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first talk through what I'm doing. I got my hood right here. I'm going to talk through what I got. So something I learned a few years ago is I like to mark out my defects with a water-based marker like this. This helps me identify, hey, that's where it is and I didn't miss it. Because you know what, Kevin, it is the worst. Get in the car, sanded, polished, done up, clean, detailed, and then quality control it, and oh man, I missed the dirt nib. That's the worst. I got to do it again. That's a classic example of over processing, right? We don't want to do that. So I got a couple nibs here. For a guy that doesn't paint that much anymore, it's not too dirty. I like it. All right. So now I got some choices to make. Do I start with 1500 grit? Is the defect super sharp? Do I grab 1000 grit? Don't know. Got to make that determination. I'm going to make that right here. The 1500, I think, can get these two. Another choice that I have, Kevin, is I can grab 3-inch paper. 3-inch paper. Why do you think I'd want to grab that?
I'm just going to go on a limb and say spot repair.
Spot repair.
Finishing,
yeah, I want to.
I think it's getting more and more popular in the industry. How'd I do?
Nailed it. Right. The 3-inch here. I only have to buff this area versus this area. Right. So I don't want to over process the unit. So depends on what I'm working with. Right. And then I have a secret weapon right here. This right here is one of those cool learning things that a lot of folks don't know, but I hope to share that with them during this training here. This 2000 grit, Kevin, no kidding, that's going to be used wet, is going to cut like a 1200, finish like 2000 grit. One step and you're out of it. Does that sound interesting?
You got my attention.
There you go. So I'll tease you with that first. I'm going to do one with a 6-inch DA, and I'm going to talk about the correct orbital sander. I call that DA, but it's really an orbital sander, right? So grabbing the correct tool. This is a Hutchins, and this is a 3/32 right here. Oh, there we go. 3/32 throw. That's what I want to use 400 grit and finer, Kevin. All right. 400 grit or finer. I want to use a 3/32 throw, which means the throw of the pad, right? So as you can see here, let's see if I can get in the camera, right? As it rotates around, okay, there you go. All right, that's going to be a bigger throw. So I have my 3/32, which is blue. I have my 3/16, which is red. And then I have my 5/16, which is black. All right. So I'm going to grab my 3/32 because that's the rule. The 3/16 is going to be 400 and coarser. And I'm going to show you what a 6-inch 1500 grit looks like. Right here, you see the defect that I've identified. I'm going to try to zoom that in. Actually, when I do that, Kevin, I'm going to mute because it's going to be super loud. So I'm going to mute it right now.
That sounds good. I think we've all heard of DA before. So what Dennis is doing is just basically sanding, first step, that defect that he's identified. And you won't see every painter identifying defects that need to be worked out with a marker, but some do, especially in tough colors, and it can definitely save a lot of time.
So something I'm going to do here on my second one, my second pass with a 3-inch, Kevin, is I'm going to measure where I'm going to sand. So where I'm going to sand says 7.4 mils. Okay. I'm going to write that down because I'll forget. That happens with age, right? All right. So 7.4. Okay. Now I'm going to grab my 3-inch right here. All right. Again, once I go to sand it, I'm going to mute. So I'm going to mute it right now. 3, 2, 1.
So Dennis had a paint thickness gauge there. Most every shop has one. I don't know that every shop uses one for every job. As a painter develops experience with the coatings that they're using, they'll know intuitively how much base, how much clear, and the millage associated with that goes on there. So you're probably not going to see a guy pull out a paint thickness meter, metering device, in the shop too frequently anyway. And it's simply a tool, but when you're working with a single line of coatings and you're used to a production environment, a painter intuitively knows the kind of millage he's laying down. Are you back with us, Dennis?
Yes, sorry about that. I measured 7.3, so I took a 1/10 off. But if it was more aggressive of a, if it was a higher nib and I kept going with the 1500 grit, I would have to use something coarser, right? Because I'd end up burning a hole right through here and not where the nib is. So I got lucky on this one, right? We chose the right grit. It sanded it off, but if it immediately showed that it did not, and you could see a little hump there, I got to grab a more aggressive sandpaper and then move up from there. So the next thing we want to do, what I wanted to do is show you that, so that's with 1500 grit dry. Now I'm gonna change it up a little bit. All right, I'm gonna grab our 3-inch wet, and instead it cuts like 1200, finishes, right? Finishes like 2000. So let's go right in the center. I have a 6.5, right? 6.5. So let me write that note down. 6.5 right there. Give it a little spritz of water. Throw it on the floor, Kevin. There we go.
You can see how nice and quiet those Hutchins sanders really are.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to mute, guys. Sorry about that.
That's all right. That's all right.
I'm not used to doing that.
A good example.
And that's a little tougher to see, but you can see it. That is gone, folks. So very short amount of time on it. That is good to go. Over here, I'm going to have to grab 2000 grit right here. I'm using some water. And I'm going to make 4 passes on this area. 4 passes. All right. So let's, this time I'll mute. All right. And when we go ahead and do this, right, the reason we make 4 passes is to make sure that 1500 grit scratch is totally gone. All right. A lot of times what happens in a shop condition is we go a half a pass over top of it, and then we end up spending more time polishing, which is, not helping the production of the shop. right? So what we want to do, take this right here. I won't forget to mute. I just want to show you. Get a nice wet there, right here. And I'm going to go ahead and mute. Go ahead, Kevin.
So it's important to understand that shops are going to use probably one or more of these techniques, wet and or dry. It's been coming to our attention over the last couple of years that more shops are electing to go to a dry technique and avoid the wet sanding and the mess that can sometimes is associated with wet sanding. So we're showing you a couple different techniques here. You may or shop may only encounter or embrace one of them in their SOP, but we have the material, we have the products that can handle either application.
So right there, you know, I'm still at 7.3. So we're still good. All right. So now, right, once we've refined that scratch, all right, we need to polish, right? We have our polish right here, or excuse me, our compound, our G360 Freckle, and our last step will be our super fast finish.
Well, let's go ahead and cover some of the slides that we have on the next step in the process, which is
absolutely
the denibbing process, the polish preparation.
Come on, there it is. So we want to make sure, you know, we want to finish with 2000 grit, of course. And we note this right here. Refer to the paint manufacturer's recommendation. If they need 2.5 mils of clear, you stay there with 2.5 mils of clear. All right. If they say 2, then it's 2, and that's why we're measuring here. We want to make sure that we take a minimal amount of product off, polish it, and send it on its way. All right. You see, I'm using these towels, these microfiber towels, to make sure it's very clean. We don't want any dirt to be polished, or excuse me, scraped along the surface here. Notice that we're using black. Black is the toughest color to work with, and we want to work with the toughest one, right? So.
Hey, Dennis, I have a question.
Sure.
They're asking, would it be easier to polish if you finish with 3000 wet sand rather than 2000?
Okay, so some manufacturers of abrasives, right, will tote 3000 grit. So this is not meant to confuse any folks. Our 2000 is equivalent. This right here is equivalent to others' 3000. So it's the same type of scratch. It's just a different type of classification that we use. Hope that makes sense, but that's the difference.
So what we're showing you here, or what we're trying to illustrate, is basically a two-step process. You know, with that sanding of 2000 grit abrasive, and then moving right up to polish. And I'm pretty sure that you'll see that we're going to get some excellent results here. I know it will be a little bit difficult to view through the camera, but you know, if you're interested in learning more, please reach out to your Norton sales representative, and we can demonstrate the process in your shop or at your customer shop very easily. Back to you, Dennis.
No, go ahead. We next slide. We've got the area nice and clean. And that's a key point. We want to make sure the pads are very clean too. All right. Again, 1500 grit sandpaper, dual action sander, 330 seconds, right? The blue one. We want to apply a small amount of G360 super fast compound, all right? Right here, and I'm going to show you an example right now. Okay.
Can you show us an example of how small a amount of material you need, or what are you showing us?
Yep, I'm gonna polish it right now. What do you think of that? And watch how quick it comes up. So I'm gonna mute. 3, 2, 1, mute.
So what Dennis has not told you, because he's on mute, is, but he's set the RPM of the buffer no greater than 1500, and he's also going to take some great pains to reduce the amount or minimize the amount of heat that's generated in the process. There he goes. In fact, right on. So the surface temp is up to about 100 degrees, 102, I think, which is certainly, well within normal range or reasonable range. You certainly don't want to get it up, into the mid 150s, 160s, because that clear could start to flow.
Yeah, believe it or not now, and that's a great point. That's when it's really hot, Kevin, like it is now in some of the states, right? You're looking for 125 degrees or below. What starts to happen is the material starts to cake on here. It starts to stick, and then as it gets hotter, because we end up chasing it, and we make it worse and worse. So keeping that temperature cool, keeping the polisher moving, to your point, keeping the RPMs down, this came up very, very quickly. And I don't know if you saw it, Kevin, but, it was the same effort on the 2000 grit wet sand 3-inch versus the 15 and 2000 grit over here. They came up at the same rate. And that's the key, right? That's a key point, is to make sure that it comes up as quickly as possible, and we can get that car out and move on to the next one, right? It's all about the cycle time.
Absolutely.
So what I'm going to do while you speak is I'm going to get this finished up, and then
I'll go ahead and advance to the polish slide, Dennis.
Beautiful. I'll finish this up, and then we'll move on. And I'll mute, of course.
Kevin, how much compound is needed while polishing?
Not very much. I would say about a dime to a nickel's size, with the area that Dennis is working on, very, very little material. If you're working on the whole side of a car, you certainly don't need to over apply the polish. A little goes a long way. The Ferracula 360 is just an awesome product. It's got a great abrasive package in it, and like I said, a little goes a long way. You definitely don't need to waste it. Are you back with us there, Dennis?
I am. I dropped the camera. Sorry.
Oh, all right, no problem. A question
And
had come in about. A question had
I did hear the question.
How much material that we really
how much
need
material to use?
Yeah.
I actually used a tick too much on that one. I'll have a better example with my next step. I'll show it right on the pad and how well it does it.
There's another question. It has to do with, it says, is it better to put the compound on the panel or on the buff pad?
That is a great question. All right. If it's a wool pad, I actually like it. I prefer it on the panel, even though I didn't on that one, trying to change it up. on the foam pad, which I'm going to show you right now, just a little, I put it on the pad. Does it matter? No, it doesn't really matter. It's just that technician preference. What's easier for them is going to be, you know, that's going to work, right? Whatever works for them is, you know, the same with the RPMs too. You know, we have a range, and you know, we just keep with that range to, you know, whatever the technician choice is, right? So, so if it's you know, 1200 RPMs or 1500, as long as you don't overheat it, we don't care. Good question. Yeah. So right here, that's how much I have on. And this is our next step with the black foam pad, same material, same compound. We've just changed the pad, Kevin. And the pad is going to be a lighter, it's not as aggressive, okay, which will refine the scratch on the panel, as you'll see. So I'll mute it again as I do this, and then you can explain what I'm doing.
So we've got a polish slide up here, which I'll go ahead and cover that. So we've already gone through most of these steps. Dennis is using a blue pad, but it could certainly be a black polishing pad as well. A little lower buffer speed, but each technician is going to have his own particular comfort zone or hot sweet spot, if you will, with this buffer. And you definitely want to make sure that you know, the pad is applied flat to the surface, and then wipe it clean using some type of a microfiber cloth. And if you're using a wool pad, of course, make sure you spur them to eliminate clogging. Nothing like dried compound in a wool pad to scratch up your surface.
If you're fighting the heat, okay, and if you didn't notice, I spritzed the panel with this material right here. This is our liquid ice cleanup detailer spray, and I spritzed it, Kevin. And the reason I did that, just to make sure that it didn't dry over top of the panel. This looks very good, but I do actually have one more step, to your point, which is changing from the black pad to the blue pad. This will allow it to be a finer foam right here, you know, a softer foam. And we're going to use our Polish super fast finish G360. And we're going to use just a little bit here. Okay. And I'll mute.
So what I've noticed through my monitor and my screen and is that, you know, there's overhead lighting that obviously in the shop there, and the overhead lighting gets sharper and sharper in definition and in clarity as he goes through the polishing process to the point where, you know, you can virtually see the fluorescent tubes or the fluorescent elements in that lighting. So that's how it's coming up for me. I don't know if you can see as much on your computer screens or not, but and I know that it can be a little bit of a challenge working with a small screen and remotely, but I'm telling you, you got to see this stuff in action. It's really nice.
So I got a final of 7.2 mils. Okay, so I shaved off what?
2/10, maybe?
3/10. 3/10 I took off. Okay. So
I'd say that's pretty good for
2/10. Yeah, 2/10. 2/10 off with a good sized nib. So, you know, that's a cool exercise to show, right? The other thing that I like to share is, is when the heat right here. I actually, when I'm polishing, can feel if it's getting way too warm, and just be aware of that as the heat rises up. You know, if you're feeling your knuckles start to cook, you know, you really want to go a little faster. You know, definitely not do this in direct sunlight, and you know, just be aware of that. You know, I know it's tough this time of year. You know, you may have to change your style to move a little bit faster so you don't heat up that panel. Okay.
So I think we've already covered this this slide, this next slide in what you're doing there with the blue pad, and wiping it afterwards with the microfiber.
I have one more question.
Okay.
Please.
When do you know when it's time to replace polishing pads?
That's a great one. Normally, okay, so if we're talking foam, and I throw them out here, this one's in good shape, right? This one needs to be perhaps hit with air or a brush. What normally happens is these things start chunking up. You know, you start losing chunks out of it. It's time to go. If it's been dropped, Melissa, then, you know, and it's been on the ground, you know, it's foam. You know, you don't want any dirt in there. You're gonna have to throw that out. So if you take good care of it, right, it's gonna take care of you. There's not any trash in it. It's not, you know, it's been cycled through. You know, you're gonna be okay. If it's falling on the ground, that's not gonna last too long. Now, if we're talking wool, right, if it's been spurred a lot, you know, you can actually see the material going away. It's time. If you see it, you know, clumped up and you can't get it to revitalize and come back, and it's really matted, it's time for a new one. It really depends how you take care of it, though. It really does. I hope that answers the person's question. If it doesn't, please keep asking it, and we'll understand what I'm trying to say.
Well, and, you know, on that subject, in a previous career with another organization, I can remember that we actually provided to our customers pad washers. You know, the glorified 5-gallon bucket that you would put your pad and your buffer in, and you would spin it with a combination of cleaning material / water, and clean wool pads that way. Foam pads didn't really lend themselves to cleaning as easily that way, but I know that wool pads can be cleaned that way. I think, you know, a good rinsing, if you have a favorite foam pad, it's just got a little bit of dried compound accumulated. Give it a good rinse and see how it looks. As Dennis said, if it doesn't have a lot of pits and missing parts in the foam, it's probably good for another couple miles anyway.
Mm-hmm. Something I missed, and I apologize, because I know we're going through this camera, is I got this light here. Hopefully that makes it easier. Yeah, a little bit. And you can see how we go through this, how good it looks, right?
That definitely is helpful. Helped me anyway.
Yeah. But the light, you know, the LED lights above us are a pretty good indicator too. Black being the toughest one, right? You know, black is tough. We've only taken 2/10 of material off. That's with the sanding and all the 3 steps of polishing. And we've got we've got a good shine here.
Well, let's keep on rolling here, Dennis. We definitely want to take a moment or two to review the SOP. Is that slide up yet for you?
Absolutely. So, you know, again, you want to remove starting with 1500 grit. All right. You want to make sure that the goal is to return to match the factory panel, whatever that is. So if it has texture or less texture, that's what you're looking to do. You then hit it with 2000 grit foam, making 4 passes. Okay. Then you want to buff. When you buff, you want to clean the dust off. Use our wool pad or foam if you want. Using the G360 super fast compound. All right. You want to make sure you're at 12 to 1300 RPMs. All right. The second step of that, the 4B, same compound, the super fast compound with a black foam pad. All right. You know, what it does is it takes the wool scratches out and starts refining it. Again, you want to move, you want to run that between 12 and 1300 RPMs. And then lastly, you want to use the blue pad, this sucker right here, with the G360 super fast finish compound. And that's it. If it starts to get dry, I like to have my trusty liquidized cleanup detailer spray right there to give it a spritz on the panel. Gives it a very nice shine, and we want to make sure that we don't create any swirls. Swirls are a lot of times any dried material compound. We want to make sure we remove that. And additionally, these products do not have any fillers in them. So if I had a product that had fillers in it, it would mask this right here. So I would think that it was correct, and then it gets washed or gets rained on, and it's not correct. So the advantage of not having fillers is you know what you have, right, when it goes out the door. Because there's nothing worse than processing the car, having it look beautiful, and then have it come back. And that's why we go with our compounds don't have any fillers in them.
Speaking of getting that car out the door, final inspection, very, very, very important.
Yes, making sure that we remove all tape and paper, of course. Sure, paint defects are corrected. We're going to wash the vehicle from the top down. To Kevin's point before, right, Kevin? Clean and sanitize the vehicle, something that we've never talked about 4 months prior. Perform final detail and inspection and deliver it, right? Move on to the next one.
If you follow those same procedures, those same basic procedures, their customer is going to end up being very satisfied with their vehicle. That whole vehicle sanitization portion now, you don't have to watch very much television to notice that that's already being worked into commercials for the major OEMs. They're showing, car dealers that are sanitizing their vehicle after service or after repair and returning it to the customer in a nice, clean, and sanitized condition. So let us help you. Technical support, it can always be found at 1-866-879-3761. Our customer service line, open, ready, taking your calls, 1-800-456-8444. And I think without any further ado here, Dennis and I would like to thank you for attending today. I guess we can open the floor up for a moment or two for additional questions. And Melissa, if you have additional questions that come in, let us know.
I do have one. How can a shop prove they sanitize a car?
That's a great question. I think that it's probably a little bit of a trust factor in these times. I think that not too dissimilar from any other shop operation. For instance, welding. A lot of shops will do a weld test or do weld coupons, and then they'll retain those weld coupons with the repair order. It might not be a bad idea for a shop to take a small video and keep that with the repair order, to document just that type of operation.
Good idea. I don't see any other questions, so
Okay.
thank you both, Kevin, Dennis. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you all for your interaction today. Great questions, and appreciate the engagement. And hope you all stay safe and be well.
Okay, and we'll be in touch with upcoming training opportunities. Thank you again. Take care, everyone.